Hello, my name is Professor John Benjamin at West Virginia Wesleyan College, and this is Motion Graphics. And today we'll be doing a couple very exciting things. One, we're going to work a little bit with Adobe Premiere and how that works in tandem with Adobe After Effects. After Effects, as you've seen, as we've used, is for special effects, and it does it really extremely well. Where Adobe Premiere, it can do a lot of the same things After Effects can do, but just without the same degree of success, you might say. And so we're going to chroma key today, or color key, in After Effects because it's much easier, it does a much better job than Adobe Premiere. Alright, so let's get started. So we're actually going to start in Adobe Premiere. Now many of you may not be that familiar with it, so you'll want to download it from Adobe Creative Cloud and go ahead and open up a new project. And we can call this keying. So the first thing I want to point out is that the workspace is quite a lot different from Adobe After Effects, but in many ways there are some things that are similar. And so here we have our project panel, which is much the same in After Effects. So we're going to bring in our footage and our graphics and all these other elements into our project here. So I provided for you a number of videos that we're going to work with today. So what I'd like you to do is download those from Canvas. Okay, so the two pieces of footage that we want to begin with are the highway. We're going to drag that into our project panel, which is over here. And if your project panel isn't there, you simply, like in all Adobe products, go to Window and look for Projects. Now we are in the assembly stage, so I should point out that the workflow for video production begins with assembly, then editing, then color correction, effects, audio, graphics, and libraries. So we are going to start in assembly. And so that makes the project panel appear a little bit larger. All right, let's get the other piece of footage, which is the man waving. All right, so we have two pieces of footage here in our project panel, and now we're ready to begin editing. So we can move from the assembly phase to the editing phase. All right, and we're going to go ahead, let's move highway into our timeline. Again, which is very similar to Adobe After Effects, and here we have our stage, and here's our timeline. Okay, and let's take a look at this footage. I'm going to scrub along and take a look here. All right, and as with all these tutorials, we want to keep it pretty short and simple so we're not waiting for a lot of rendering time. So let's go ahead and we're only going to keep, say, 4 seconds of this footage. So let's go ahead and trim that down to 4 seconds. And I did that simply by having my arrow tool here and going to the end of the clip and dragging it down. Okay, so we've just got 4 seconds of footage there, and then let's bring in our man waving, and he's already got just about 4 seconds. Okay, and that's fine. Now notice a couple of things here. Here's our highway footage, our man waving footage, and now here is our sequence, and it's automatically called itself highway. And you can see there the name of highway is there too. This works the same way as our compositions do in After Effects. Now we can simply go ahead and do the chroma keying that we want in Adobe Premiere, but it does a better job in After Effects, and it makes it a lot easier. So that's what we're going to do, as most professionals would. But you can do it here to keep things simple if you like, but that's not what today's tutorial is about. So what we're going to do is, and this applies to not just chroma keying, but all special effects that you want to add to your footage, to your film. You'll bring your footage into Premiere, and this is where you'll do the linear editing. But then when you want to add special effects, you select the sequence or the clip and right-click, and then we say Replace with After Effects Composition. And there we have After Effects. Now I should point out that it's good to have After Effects open. Now After Effects is going to ask us to call this something. I called the first Adobe Premiere keying, and so why don't we call this keying AE. And there you can see we already have our composition, which has a name, and our footage of the highway. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. That looks good. And just to show you kind of how well these work together, what I'm going to do is, and I'd like you to do this as well, is let's go ahead and pretend this is like a title sequence. So we're going to go to our type tool here and create some text. And let me choose a better color. And that's white. Okay, and I'm just going to move that over here. That's the title of the film. Okay, and then I'm going to hit Control S or Command S on a Mac, and let's move back to Premiere. And there it is. And so, but the interesting thing now in Premiere, it's no longer a blue clip down here. It's pink, indicating that it's being handled in After Effects. So that's how we know that. And I should point out too, again, here is our video on V1 and our audio on A1. Now there isn't much audio for these clips, as you can see, but if you'd had some more specific audio editing that you needed to do, you would right-click on the audio and open it up in Adobe Audio Edition. So the same thing like After Effects, its specialty is special effects. Audio Edition is special audio effects, and also audio editing. So you can do a lot of audio editing in Adobe Premiere, but that more specific stuff, if you want to do it a little bit easier and have more tools, then you open it up in Adobe Edition. And it will do the same thing. Once you save it, it'll have a different color to give you that indicator. Okay, so let's move back to Adobe After Effects. And we're going to bring in some green screen footage so we can show you how to color key. Okay, so let's go back to the footage that you downloaded, and there is an explosion. So we're going to drag that into our After Effects project panel. Right, and there it is. And we're going to bring this explosion right onto our footage here. Okay, and let's go ahead and make it fit the composition size, so we can right-click and say Transform and Fit to Comp. Okay, so here we have, now on layer 1 is our explosion, and we want to get rid of the green screen. So how do we do that? Let's go to After Effects, Effects and Presets, and come down to keying. And there's lots of different keying tools here for all sorts of different needs. But we're just going to go right to Key Light 1.2. And you can just double click that to apply it. Oh, pardon me, you have to have your layer selected. So we want to apply it to the explosion, and we can double click to activate it. And then you can see here with the explosion layer selected, we have Key Light, the effects applied in here. And this is incredibly simple if you've got a good green screen. And the next step of this tutorial will show you how to do a garbage matte and how to tweak a green screen that might have wrinkles or uneven lighting. But as you can see here, this explosion has very even lighting, and so all we're going to need to do is simply click on the screen color selector right here, this little eyedropper, and click in the green, and voila, all of that is turned transparent pixels. All right, so now let's go ahead and move our explosion to a place on the in this footage that we want to, and so I'm going to go ahead and move it around. I think I want my explosion to happen right here. You can see there's a cyclist here, motorcyclist, and what I'd like to do is pretend that he just threw a bomb over the side of the road and then is getting away here. All right, so we're going to put it somewhere over here. And what I'd like to see is, you can see that this particular explosion kind of explodes out this way and not this way. So I'm going to go ahead and just tuck it behind these two little hills back here. We can scrub that real quick and see how that looks. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, so we're going to do just a little bit of rotoscoping so we can put that explosion behind the hill. So now to do that, I need a duplicate of the highway. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the ocean footage from one piece of video, but then I need to bring that ocean footage back in. And so I'm going to need to duplicate this footage. So here I have highway, and I'm going to go ahead and just Control D or Command D on a Mac. And I've got it twice, but we're going to need to distinguish between the front and the back, so I'm going to call this one highway front, or F, and this one highway B for back. Okay, and then I'm going to move the highway front in front of the explosion, like so. Actually, I'm going to move my text up there, so I need that on the top. Okay, so here's my highway front, and I'm going to go do a little rotoscoping. So I'm going to come up here to my roto brush, double click on the footage, make sure that's the one I want, highway front, and I'm going to go ahead and make my brush a little bit bigger. Remember, if you hold the Control key and click and drag to make your brush bigger. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead. This is the area that I want to have visible. Yeah, I did a pretty good job. A couple little holes here and here. those. Okay, and that looks great. So I've rotoscoped the first few frames, and now After Effects is going to go ahead and try to fill in the rest. Now I've got 4 seconds to work on here, so that can take a little bit of time for it to render for each of those frames. And remember, we've got this little gray bar here. We want to drag that all the way out to where we want to be, which is 4 seconds. And you can drag that little blue bar out too to kind of coax things along. All right, you can see we've got a little bit up here, not quite, maybe 3 or 4 frames, and we can move up to 10 frames and wait for it to cache and do its job. And then we're going to move to our composition away from the rotoscoping. And there we have it. And so we've rotoscoped out this black area here and added the explosion behind that in the layers. And that's why we've added the full unrotoscoped footage in the background too, so they can interact with each other just perfectly. All right, and so there we have it. And we can play that through. It looks pretty realistic. Now, one thing I think I realized here is I'd like the explosion to happen a little bit after we start watching. So I'm going to go here to the explosion footage. I'm just going to slide it up a little bit right there, so we don't see it until a few moments later. There we go. All right, so go ahead and hit Save, Control S, or Command S on the Mac, and let's move back to Adobe Premiere. And there it is. And so now we can continue on with all of our linear editing in Premiere, adding extra movie clips and all these things that don't have special effects. You can create a film or a short video. Okay, let's go on to step 2. This is with the man waving. Okay, so what we have here, of course, we realize that his footage is too small for this this size, and so we're going to go ahead and have to scale him up a little. So I'm just going to go here to Scale, and he needs to be scaled precisely 100%. So I'm just going to type in 200, make him fit there perfectly. And what this gentleman requires is a garbage mat. And so that means we can't just simply click on the green screen and have to take it all away, because we've got little bits around here around the edges where the green screen is clipped to this framework. Okay, but we want to do that again in After Effects, since After Effects does a much better and easier job than Premiere. So we're going to go and do the same procedure. We're going to right click and say Replace with After Effects Composition. And that will take us here. Here we have a new comp 2, or we can rename it if we like. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create what we call a garbage mat. And so we're going to just use a basic mask to get rid of this extra. So the very first thing that you need to do with any kind of special effects or video production is analyze your footage. That's the most important thing you can do, because what we have to do is see if we see here that this nice gentleman is waving to us right around a 3-second mark here. And so if I were to simply create a garbage mat right around him, that wouldn't include this area where he's waving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to a point where I kind of have an estimate of where his hand's going to be. Looks like right there is a good spot to start. And I'm just going to create an ordinary mask. Now remember, to do that, you have to have the layer selected. And then you can just simply go to the pen tool and start creating your garbage mask. And it doesn't have to be precise, because the Chrome key, or the key, is going to do all the work for you. But we're going to reduce the amount of labor that it has to work, because we're getting rid of all of this stuff. And just now we can just focus on just the green color itself. So let's scrub through that and make sure that this mask doesn't cover him up. Okay, good. That's actually pretty close. So again, if you had brought this anchor point in too far, you see his hand goes outside of that and his fingers get chopped off. So we don't want that to happen. So you have to make sure that we can see all his movement and that none of his body parts leave the screen. Even this by his ear, I could probably move out just a little bit. Okay, and that's called a garbage mask. Or, yeah. Okay, great. Now we're ready to key. So we're going to go once again to Key Light, and if we have our layer selected, we can double click. There's our key light, and we're going to go to our eyedropper and click in probably a lighter or more mid-range area here, because we have different values of green based on the light that's hitting this green screen. And that pretty much took care of it. But one of the things we want to look at back now is the motion blur of his hand. Okay, so if we look in close there, it looks actually pretty good. But sometimes in motion blur, as you would expect, there can be a little extra green in there. So we can go and tinker with the gain a little bit. And so I can bring in more green or reduce it and remove more green. Now if we remove too much green, he's going to start to look a little odd. So we don't want to go too far, but it looks a little green right around 80, so we can go up to 100%, and that looks pretty good, maybe even like a little higher. Okay, great. And then again, any of these other controls can help you to get rid of some of those extra artifacts. But this one really did the job for us quite well. All right, and so we need to give him a background. We can go back to the footage that you downloaded, and we have the star background that we can use here. So go ahead and bring that into After Effects. And for some reason, it's not going to let me drag it. So if that happens to you, you can simply import footage. So I'm going to go ahead here to say File, Import, File. I'm going to look for my stars picture there. Right, and there it is. I'm going to drag it below the waving person here and zoom out. I can adjust the scale, and we can even act like he's traveling in space. So I could do something along these lines at 10 frames. I could set a scale keyframe, and then maybe at 4 seconds, we'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit. So that way it looks like we're slowly. Okay, and there you have it. We're going to go ahead and Control S that, come back to Adobe Premiere, and you'll see that that has been taken care of. And so we can add text, special effects, and all of those other elements using After Effects because that's what it's good at. It does it better than Premiere does. And so then, but what Premiere does better is linear editing. So you wouldn't want to edit an entire 2-hour-long film in After Effects. That would be incredibly cumbersome. So we do that in Premiere, but then we do our special effects and our typography in After Effects. So good luck with that. So for this final tutorial, though, you'll want to go into Adobe Premiere like we are here with these 2 clips, and then you'll want to say File and Export Media. And the format you want to choose is H.264. That's an MPEG or an MP4. And that's one of the best file formats. The output name and the location where you save it, you click here. And so I am going to save this not to this file, but I'm going to save this to my classes folder. And we're going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Keying Tutorial. All right, so it has a name. We know where it's going. We know what file type it's going to be. And then we can just simply hit Export. And one of the good things about Adobe Premiere is it's much better at exporting than After Effects. And as we've seen, using Media Encoder can be a little cumbersome as well. So one of the things that you might consider doing is starting in Premiere, then working in After Effects, and then saving, coming back to Premiere for your export. Because Premiere is sort of designed to do that. So, all right, well, good luck with that project, or that tutorial, and I'll see you next time.